Dawn of the Beast was just released today, and I went into it completely blind, and it's about a group of graduate students that go out looking for Bigfoot, and they get more than they bargain for. Now, I don't want you to just immediately, throw this into the Bigfoot subgenre and be like, that's been done so much lately. Because this film has a lot more to offer than just that. It does not just feature the Bigfoot creature. It actually has more monsters in it than that. And there is a pretty badass final fight sequence that I was quite impressed with by the, ambition of it all for the budget. And it had some music that was amplifying it. I don't want to get into it because I don't want to, spoil anything with that. But now, don't go into it expecting some Marvel fight or anything. Of course, that's ridiculous. This is a small budgeted film. That's why I like the ambitious nature of it and how into it I was in the moment. Now, there is some lack of character development in the first half of the film that made me feel like it was very generic and trying too hard and was a little too, typical archetype, stuff like that. But there is one character in particular that gets like a well-rounded arc storyline to him, and I felt quite satisfied with that in the end, even though about halfway through I didn't think I would care about anyone's journey and their destination and the finality of them. So I did find myself surprised by how much that arc landed for me in the end. And I also looked up the director's other stuff. A buddy of mine pointed out that this might or might not be a sequel to the film Monstrous that the director did before this. I looked at the poster for that, and it does look like a similar Bigfoot, but I also, while watching this, saw some of the other creatures and was like, that looks a fuckload like the monsters on the cover of this film called The Retreat. And after I got done with this film, I looked up The Retreat, and lo and behold, it's the same director. So I have to assume, I have no actual, proof of this, and I haven't looked into it to find out, but I'm only going to assume just by looking at Monstrous, which has similar actors as this one, and The Retreat, which has similar, creature designs, if not from what the poster looks like, it's the exact same fucking props and, costumes and whatever. I have to assume he took stuff from other films that he's made and smashed them together, because you've got monsters from that film, you've got monsters from this film, and both of them seem to be in this movie. So now, whether or not this is some big MCU Marvel Cinematic connected universe and The Retreat and Monstrous are connected to this film, which would be cool, it's possible. But if not, I have a feeling he took the effects stuff from each of those films and maybe some ideas, and he smashed them together to make a new film out of it, which I think is cool and makes sense. I mean, if you have that stuff and you can make it feel fresh. Now, I haven't seen the other films, so maybe this is just like a knockoff of those, or a retelling or a rehash. But hey, Evil Dead 2 is a rehash of Evil Dead 1, and we all love that. Well, most of us do anyway. But I really was just impressed by the ambitiousness of this film, especially towards that ending fight that I had mentioned. I wasn't fully in on the whole thing, and while the budget does hold it back, I did find myself entertained and kind of having some fist pumping moments towards the end. So the last act of the film was the payoff for me, and there's even another character whose motives seem one thing and then are revealed to be another thing that made me go, oh cool, because I didn't even know if they were going to address this and finish that off. But when they did, I was like, cool. So the last act was by far the most solid of the film. The first two acts for me were lacking, and I was kind of like, this is okay. And I like that they're changing it up by making it more than one thing. And there was a moment there I was kind of worried, like, oh, they're doing too much. It's going to be like, pick a monster, pick a genre, pick a thing, But in the end, I thought it came together quite well, and I liked it. So this is kind of a third act saving film for me, and one I would revisit if I went back and watched Monstrous and The Retreat, and I realized that they might have something to do with this, or just to look at the similarities of like the costumes or the effects or any of that stuff, just to see how similar they are. Whatever, but you know, it's a cool film. Monsters has like a 3.6 or something on IMDb, so that one's a little questionable on whether or not I'll ever watch it. It is free on IMDb TV, and The Retreat I know is out, and I think is on Amazon Prime. So maybe I'll check out The Retreat just so I can confirm that those costumes, or you know, whatever you want to call them, the prosthetics, are exactly the same. Because from the poster, they're exactly the same. But there's some cool stuff in this, and there's a really cool shot of this like demon thing in the shadows. Looks like a skull head. I'm not going to say anything else, but I was like, yeah, that's cool, man. That's cool. And it takes place during that fight as well. So, and there's even some like Evil Dead looking shit in here. So, yeah, the third act is really good. That's, as I said, this is a third act saving film. The setup to it was like, I don't know how I'm feeling about this. But maybe now that I like the third act so much, I could go back and appreciate the first two acts. So, I'm not opposed to watching this again. But you know, it's available for rent on Amazon right now for like $4. So check it out if this seems like your kind of film. As I said, low budget. You got to look past some stuff. Not the greatest acting here and there. Actually, most of the acting is not amazing, but I like the ambitiousness of this film. I think it's really cool for what they were able to pull off with what they had. So kudos to everybody, you know. And if he did use shit from the other movies that he had, and he was like, you know what? I have this stuff from this movie, and I have this stuff from this movie, and I still have the actors around, and and I put the scripts together, and I kind of made it cooler, and I made it more realized, and fuck yeah, that's awesome, man. Kind of like learning from your mistakes, so to speak, and creating this like kind of hodgepodge film of taking things and elements from other places that you've had in the past, maybe little successes from this, little successes from this, merging them together. Whatever did end up happening, I like the result here. I think it's cool. So anyways, let me know if you watch this. Adios.